Hello, and welcome to the Today Show. I'm your host, Christopher Power, on your TV, Kojako, the Disability Channel. Today, our guest is the mayor from Burlington, Marianne Meed Ward. So stay tuned. Good day and welcome, Marianne. Mayor, how are you?
I'm doing great. Great to be with you on the show. Thanks for having me.
Well, welcome, and thank you for taking the time to be here with us today. So, the city of Burlington is doing so much, but not many people know this, but the city of Burlington is actually submitting an expression of interest with regards to the purchase of Robert Bateman High School. And correct me if I'm wrong, in association with the Brock University. So what's behind the drive of the purchase here?
Well, the high school was closed by the Halton District School Board a few years ago. And the board then goes through a process of just determining whether they need to keep that school for any other purpose, adult education or administrative offices, or renting it to other users. And they've decided that it is surplus to their needs. They don't need it anymore. And so about a year ago, they said it is surplus to us. So we're going to offer the whole thing, the school, the property, for sale. And under provincial regulations, there are some groups that get to bid first before, the regular market or development interests or such like that. So one of those in the queue early on is municipalities. So after, we as a council then said, look, we're really interested in submitting an offer. So over the past year, we have been working with the school board to negotiate an offer to purchase the whole school. And as part of that, we had been in discussions with Brock University. They wanted to bring their adult education campus to Burlington. They thought that Bateman would be a great spot for that, but they only need a tiny fraction of the school. The school is huge. It is over 200,000 square feet. And so we began discussions with a number of other groups to see, who would like to be in there. There's a city pool already there that we don't own, so this will help us gain ownership of that. The library that is in Ward 5, our Burlington Public Library, is outgrowing their space in the retail plaza on Appleby line.
Okay.
So they thought they could move in there. Halton District School Board did want to keep some space. And so this was revealed to the public back in November. There was a whole bunch of groups and users that wanted to participate. And even with all of that, there's still space left over. So we're still we're still negotiating with the school board. We hope to have the details of that public very soon. So stay tuned, and also do some discussions with the community about what we can do with the additional space, because there's still space left over.
So walk me through, the Halton District School Board, as you said, says, hey, we no longer need this building and it becomes a surplus. What does that really look like? Is it just there's not enough, young kids going to school, the demographic has changed, or they're just kind of saying, hey, this school is too far over here and we're going to move people to a different location? How does it become a surplus? Like, I don't understand that.
That was a big process, a difficult process, controversial for the community. Some years ago, it started in around 2017, where the school board undertakes what's called a program accommodation review. And they review all of the schools, the population numbers, to determine if they still need all the schools that they have. And what they discovered is that because of declining enrollment at Robert Bateman, it was underutilized, the school. They also, as part of the very same process, closed Lester P. Pearson High School. So there were two schools that they felt they didn't need given their existing student numbers. And a big part of that is people aren't having as many kids as they used to. And so, gone are the days of 5 or 6 or more kids. It's sort of 1.7 or 2. And so even though there are still families obviously living in Burlington, the population, the student population has decreased. And so the school board felt, and the board of trustees made that decision. I participated in that process as a parent. My kids at the time were in Halton District School Board. And so they chose to close those two schools. And Pearson is actually still being used by the school board. They've rented it out to actually the Catholic board when that school was doing renovations, and they've got tenants for some other uses. So they have not yet declared Pearson surplus. They're keeping it right now in their facility. But that's how the process works. So the school board determines what are the needs going forward, and they closed Bateman and then offered it out for purchase. And so, as I said, we were sort of one of the first in line to bid. We did as soon as we had the chance. And I will say that City Council has recently adopted a policy that we will make an offer on any closed school site that becomes surplus to the school board's needs, because we know that these are important community amenities, that there are often large parks around them. And the best way for us to control what happens there is to buy it and to work with the community to see, do we want affordable housing here? Do we want a combination of jobs? Do we want a community center, or a combination of all of those on the same parcel? So we are committed to doing that as a council. And the first up at bat was Bateman.
Wow. So Bateman's going to be turned into still an educational building, but kind of this city of Burlington mecca for almost anything community by the sounds of it.
Well, it'll be the largest community center by the time we're done, plus a university, plus Halton District School Board is shifting their adult education from Gary Allen on New Street over. So it'll have a library, it'll have a gym, it will have a pool, and then there's still some community rooms left over. So it will be the largest community center in the city once all is said and done.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a very, very exciting project. And I'm really looking forward to the next steps once we get the ink sealed on the deal, and then we can start to talk to the community about what else we can do in this space. And I've already had people suggesting ideas for what they'd like to see. A number of people have compared it to the Queen Elizabeth Gardens Cultural and Community Center in Oakville, which is just across the border from Burlington. And they've turned that into an incredible community center. But it was a former high school too that was closed. So I did a tour with the mayor of Oakville, Rob Burton, some months ago when we were looking at buying Bateman to see what the possibilities were. And I was just so inspired. I know the community, many of the community members that live in that part of the city, they go there because we don't have something similar in Burlington. So Bateman will be that opportunity for us to have our own community and cultural center right here in the city, in that part of the city.
Well, that's really cool. Now, not many people really understand all of the roles of holding office. Do you find yourself interacting with other mayors from different municipalities or townships on a daily or weekly basis?
You know what? I rely on those other mayors because I'm a new mayor. As you know, I was elected the first time mayor in 2018. I had served as councillor for 2 terms, but it's very different. It is a very, very different role between councillor and mayor. And so I do sit on the Ontario Big City Mayors Caucus, and that's a group of 29 mayors across Ontario that serve communities with a population of greater than 100,000. And of course, we in Burlington are closing in on 200,000. So I've found being at that table, especially through the pandemic, to be incredibly helpful as a new mayor, learning from the voices. And we've done a lot of joint advocacy to the province around things like safe restart funding for our municipalities because of the pandemic, whole host of other things. I also speak regularly with my fellow Halton mayors and regional chair. So, of course, Burlington is part of Halton Region, which includes Milton, Oakville, Halton Hills, and then we have our regional chair as well. So we call ourselves the Five Amigos. We did. I convene meetings of that group sometimes weekly or every other week during the pandemic, depending. And again, found being able to rely on the experience of those mayors who had all been in it much longer than me. Of course, Gord Krantz is the longest serving mayor in the country, surpassed Hazel McCallion's record some time ago. Just turned 85 this week, so happy birthday to Gord. And I also sit on the Association of Municipalities of Ontario Large Urban Caucus. And so I try to represent Burlington at any table that I can, for not only to bring Burlington's voice to policy development or advocacy, but also to learn from and hear what other municipalities are doing. So it's been a great resource for me, especially as a new mayor.
Wonderful. Well, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Casey McKay, and be sure to watch Press Box on the Disability Channel. It's some great stuff we're covering, so be sure to tune in. Again, I'm Casey McKay, reporting for the Disability Channel, and I'll see you soon.
Hi, this is Rocky Blyer, and you're watching the Disability Channel, showcasing abilities.
Hello, I am Unstoppable Tracy in Toronto, host of the Today Show Toronto on Bell 5. Wonderful to meet you all. Look forward to tuning in with you.
Welcome back to the Today Show. With us, our guest is the mayor of Burlington, Marianne. Now, Mayor, what do you believe the light bulb moment was for you or for anybody else who says, hey, I want to be the mayor here? What's kind of that inspiration or that eureka moment for them?
This is all about community service. So you have to want to serve the community and bring about change to make your city better, do some good. I think that's why most elected officials go into office, is they want to make the world a better place and contribute to that change. And certainly that was the case for me. I was a journalist myself for over 20 years before I ran. And, the light bulb moment for me was I was an opinion writer. I was a columnist. I was a panelist, talk show person. I would often be telling governments what they should do. And at a certain point in my life, I said, you know what? I don't want to just tell other people through my writing and my calling what they should be doing. I want to get in there and do it myself. I want to be part of that change. And so I ran the very first time in 2006 in the municipal election. I lost that one. I ran in 2007 provincially. I lost that one too. And then I ran again in 2010 and I won. That was my first seat on council. And 2014, I ran for re-election, won that. And then in 2018, I made the really tough choice for me to give up my seat as a councillor to run for mayor. And if I lost that, and there was no guarantee, I'd be off council. And I loved what I did. And of course, that election, I was running against the incumbent mayor. There was also the former member of parliament who had served both on council and for, in the federal House of Commons for many years. And, so formidable challenge. But the light bulb was I just kept hearing from the community and had my own concerns about the development that was taking place across the city, including downtown, and felt the community voice was really being tuned out. And so I took a huge risk to give up what, people told me was a pretty safe re-election as councillor, because people were, they were happy with the service. I was hearing that, to run for mayor. And there's no guarantees. There was no guarantees. I would say I started as the dark horse in that race. There was no guarantee I was going to win, but it was that important to me that, the status quo and just continuing along was not going to work. And And so I felt I needed to bring change, and this was the way to do it. So I took that risk, and I was really okay with, whatever the outcome was going to be was the public's choice. And I've always respected democracy and just, respected the residents' right to choose. And I was okay with that. So it gave me kind of peace that whatever the outcome is, that's what the people have said, and they've spoken, and they obviously chose me. So that was awesome. That was a very special night, I can tell you that. So very, very happy to be able to serve the community, and it's a real honor and it's a privilege.
So that kind of almost emulates when you openly talk about your top 5 priorities that you have, getting traffic moving, talking about the reducing the flood risk plain and taxes and things like that, but transparency itself within the government. Why do you feel that there's a lack of trust or a lack of transparency between, I guess, the office and the citizens? It seems to me like you're saying, hey, let's be open book and show everybody everything. But it's also one on your top priority list of trying to ensure everyone knows that that's available or transparent. Sorry.
No, it's a great question. And, my 8 years as a council member, the council wasn't, in my mind, respectful towards each other. They weren't respectful to the public when they would come and delegate. There were what we used to call gotcha questions, that would embarrass residents. Did you know that? And, they would make residents feel bad if they didn't know chapter and verse of what we were doing, rather than listen deeply to what the residents were saying and see if there was merit or validity or anything that we could learn and make a better decision. And so that was a real concern for me. And that was part of what I ran on, is to restore trust. Community members felt, look, the decisions that council are making, especially on development, don't reflect what I want to see happen in my city. I heard that across the city, people saying, I don't like this vote. I think they're tuning us out. They're not, reflecting resident input in their decisions. I certainly felt that way as a councillor, and I was, colloquially known as the queen of the 6-1 vote. There's 7 of us on council. I lost a lot of votes, and that's heartbreaking because you believe in your position, and when you lose like that, you wonder. It's tough. It's tough. But the more that happened, the more I heard from the community saying, you're actually reflecting what we feel.
Oh, cool.
And so part of that accountability, transparency to the community was to actually listen and represent those views. And as it turned out, in the election, we saw that the city was with me. My colleagues weren't. And that's, so the result. There was only 1 council member that was reelected. Three people, including the mayor, lost their seat in that election because residents felt they were tuned out. So really important to stay in touch with the community. And if you're going to vote a different way, to explain why. And so, you mentioned transparency. One of the very first things I did as a council member is I started a monthly newsletter to tell people about decisions at City Hall before we made them. That was novel at the time, not after the fact. Look, this is what we did, when nobody could influence it. Nobody could make a recommendation. It was really important for me from a accountability, transparency standpoint to say, here's what's coming up. Here's kind of where I'm at. I would give them my take if I knew, to say, so what do you think? And when I ran for re-election in 2014, and even when I was running for mayor, that was the one thing that people in the community said they valued most. You tell us what you think, you tell us why, we can engage with you and tell you what we think, but we know where you stand. And residents even said, even when I don't agree with you, at least I know why and how you got to that perspective. So, and now it's standard. Every single member of council, and even back then, other council members adopted that. But every member of council has a monthly newsletter and stays in direct touch with their community.
Now, the monthly newsletter, is that on your site? You had something called the Mayor Mailbag. Is that the monthly newsletter you're referring to?
No, but that's a great question too. The monthly newsletter is you subscribe. It's by email. So anyone that wants to can subscribe. That's through my webpage, mariannemeedward.ca. It's right there on the homepage, and you'll find all the articles that are in the newsletter on that page too. So you can subscribe. You get it all packaged up nicely once a month in your inbox. But we post almost daily. Actually, we do post daily. So there's always, and if you, we talked about Bateman earlier. Anyone interested in Bateman, go to the website, search for Bateman. You'll find all of the information that I shared today about that. But the mayor's mailbag is something that we started because, we would get questions from constituents via email. What about this? What about that? And if we got, a number of people asking, or we thought, we bet there's other people out there in the community who are asking that very same question. So every Monday, we pick a question that we've gotten from the community that we think others would like to know the answer to. And that's our mayor's mailbag. So, sometimes it's leaf collection, or it's snow pickup, or it's, what is happening with the Bateman site, or, any number of questions. And it's been well received because we discovered that, usually there are more than just that one person who emailed us that is asking that same question and values getting the answer. So we do that every Monday. And then at the end of the month, we do kind of a roundup where here's all the questions that came in this month if you missed them, and here's all the answers.
Cool. So when we look at this newsletter that you're doing and getting all the questions put in, have you been coming across anybody or the city or the citizens saying, hey, what are the green initiatives that we can look forward to from the city of Burlington? Or is that still, down there on the list of things?
No, actually, climate change as a whole has gotten right to the top. And I think that's because there's global awareness of the urgency of acting to slow down climate change. We declared a climate emergency in 2019. That was brought forward by one of my colleagues. And then we set about building a climate action plan, and we're working our way through the items on that list.
Awesome. Well, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
All about inclusion and really giving everyone a fair say.
Welcome to the Today Show. This is our flagship show. I am Unstoppable Tracy.
I am Zach Damon.
It is a pleasure to be here. I am excited. What is up?
We have a great show today.
Jay Stoyan here for the Disability Channel, the world's only inclusive channel for and by persons with disabilities.
Get ready to be inspired, everyone.
We have people watching from all over the world, but also all over Ontario.
We also take a concerted attention in the veterans community.
In moments of stress and trauma, we can get a hold of ourselves.
To help make a difference for people with disabilities, to show people how to love themselves or their disability.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys having me, giving this platform for myself and other people with disabilities.
Thank you so much, folks, for joining us for this episode of the Disability Channel of Detroit. Please tune in next time.
Welcome back. You're on the Today Show, and our guest today is the mayor of Burlington, Marianne. We were just talking about a little bit of the climate change and the call to action. Now, some people have these million-dollar ideas, and they want to help their city, and they want to help as best they can. Where can, I guess, they submit their proposal for an idea or speak to someone from council about these, I'll say, green initiatives moving forward?
So there's many ways to do that. So I met recently with a student who had an idea for solar panels, and it was quite simply he just emailed me and said, I'd like to meet with you and present this proposal, and got a meeting with the mayor. And, because I'm always interested to hear from our young people. This is a 15-year-old high school student. And it was a great conversation. He'd prepared a PowerPoint with all of his ideas, and then we were able to share, here's some of the things that the city is doing already on some of that. But it was a great exchange of ideas. So, anyone can reach out to ask for a meeting with the mayor. There's a little link on my webpage. You can also get to it from the city webpage, and it's just, meet with the mayor. So that's one way. There's also, we have over a dozen citizen advisory committees where we ask residents to give us advice, their advisory to council around policy changes or things that we can do to make the city better. So just a few of those. We have a heritage committee, an accessibility advisory committee. We have an inclusivity committee, sustainable development. We have a number. I know I'm forgetting some. Mobility committee, transportation advisory committee, seniors advisory committee. So we interview. We ask candidates in the community to express an interest in one of those, and then they join the committee for a period of time. And their whole role is to look at how can we, on the area that we're part of, how can we make sure the city is getting good information to make good decisions. So that's another way to be involved. We also have the getinvolvedburlington.ca webpage. And so the city will post public meetings, town halls, surveys, whenever those come up. So, and if people are interested, they can actually subscribe to that page so that anytime there's new information, they'll get an email alert. So those are just, there's more, but those are just some of the ways that we try to keep in touch with the community and say, give us your good ideas. Some of it's more informal, like the meet with the mayor. Some of it is a little bit more structured and formal through the citizen committees. We have working groups, we have surveys. We use every tool we can, every single tool we can, because not every tool works for everybody, right? So so there's many opportunities to bring ideas forward, and I encourage residents, and actually I'm just so grateful for people that do take their time to share with us what they think, because we do incorporate that.
So when we look at reaching out to the community and getting information, and on one of your sites you do mention a comprehensive housing strategy regarding the support of the Halton region. Now, recently, there was a unanimous vote against the two buildings proposed for Lakeshore until sufficient studies and I'll say community outreach had been completed. What does that really look like? How can people get involved in these meetings and studies to have their voice concerned regarding that building and the sufficient housing?
So that's another really good one. So whenever it comes to development, there are requirements by law around the number of public meetings that we have to have and engagement that we have to do. So we do encourage people. And again, every council member puts that in their newsletters. So I strongly encourage residents to sign up for their ward councilor's newsletter as well as mine. Because those notices are in there, but they also put them in the newspaper and other places. So on the two buildings that you mentioned, those had been underway for almost a year. There was a public meeting early September, and then there's a city webpage that is dedicated to that, and information about, if residents have feedback, who to send that to. And actually last April, we had another public meeting where residents could come and tell us what they thought. We had a number of people come out and do that very thing. And then council voted. So that was a public process throughout.
Okay.
And we follow that similar process with all development applications. We have initiated some new things over my time in office, where we set up a dedicated web page on the city site for every application, so you can track it. You can subscribe. So anytime there's an update, you will get an alert. If there's a public meeting called, if there's a new report posted, you will get that email notification. You can see actually every development project in the city. So currentdevelopmentprojects.ca, I think is what it is. It's Burlington, Google it, or email me and I'll send you the link, and you by ward. So if you live in Ward 1, you could see everything and so forth. So And you can subscribe to as many as you want to get notified when there's information on how to participate. So it is a public process, but I would say the city of Burlington goes above and beyond. We don't have to do that under legislation, but we do because we want to hear from people, what their views are.
Wonderful. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Hi, this is Dave Stevens for the Disability Channel.
An inability to break out. I'm sitting by the door on the second floor, losing my 7-year war. It's not an illusion, so why the exclusion?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's about you. So,
You say you're a disability dynamo.
Joining me, and welcome to this beautiful Travelers Championship.
I only want one accolade from you.
So my story is unique, it's amazing, but it's not anything that you guys don't have inside of you. I'm not a hero, I'm not anybody special, I'm just this guy without legs that went out, and I just did it.
Stats outweigh the Democrats, the diplomats, and the bureaucrats.
This is probably your first interview down on the ground on your butt and stuff like that?
First time ever,
All
baby.
right.
Eliminate, invalidate, invalidate, invalidate.
Stay with us and the Disability Channel.
Welcome back. I'm your host, Christopher Power, with the mayor of Burlington, Marianne. Marianne, I have time for a couple more questions for you. Can you let us in on anything that's up and coming for the community to get excited about?
Well, the Bateman project that we talked about earlier is probably right up there for sure. There will be opportunities very soon coming up for public input on that project. And of course, ideas, once we buy it, we're still negotiating that, for what we can do with the space that isn't already being used by some of those other users. It's a huge site. We have ongoing work that is happening around how to plan for development around our major transit station areas. And those are our 3 GO stations, Appleby, Burlington, and Aldershot. And we've been undertaking that work for a number of years where we've sketched out, look, where do high rises go? Where do mid rises go? Where do parks go? How do we get community centers in these areas? Because a lot of our future population growth that Burlington gets assigned by the province through Halton region, we need to accommodate it somewhere. We're not going to change our urban boundary. We're not sprawling onto farmland. So we have to accommodate it within our urban boundary, which is also, very environmentally friendly. It respects climate change. It is a much more efficient way of development. But we can't just build high-rise buildings in these areas. We have to have parks. We have to have community centers. We have to have jobs, services, shops, and more than just a dry cleaner and a dental office in the base of those buildings. Meaningful jobs, meaningful services that would employ people. Those things are meaningful, don't get me wrong, but we need more than just that. So that planning work has been underway. That's coming up. You mentioned the housing affordability situation, and the city embarked about a year ago on a housing affordability strategy to look at what tools the city has, because the delivery of affordable housing isn't really within the city's jurisdiction to control that, but we have levers to incent it. We can also advocate to other levels of government. We can partner. So one of the tools we have is, for example, a community improvement plan area. We call it a CIP. So if you say, look, we really want to have affordable housing as part of the development around our GO stations, we can put a community improvement plan designation over those GO stations and say, if you're going to build affordable housing, we can give you discounts on certain city fees. So it allows us to incent using those tools. that's one of the ones we're considering. There are some others, but we've been discussing for about a year. We had a community working group to give us some ideas. There's some surveys that have hit the street this week. There's some public meetings coming up next week. So we hope to have the finishing touches on our housing affordability strategy by May or June. It's coming soon. And then we just have to get busy implementing it. So that is a really exciting project coming up. There's lots more, but those are kind of top of mind for people. We talked about our climate action plan earlier, where we're constantly moving some of those action items forward. One of which was a housing retrofit grant program. So, for example, if you wanted to switch to geothermal energy from your traditional heating source, we would give you some loans or grant money for that. So lots of great things coming up.
Wonderful. And my last question for you: what makes the mayor of Burlington, Marianne Meed Ward, smile?
The people of the city. You know what? I have been so inspired, especially through COVID, to see the community come together, to see helping organizations like our food banks, our mental health organizations, our, Halton Women's Place, our hospital, police, first responders, all of everybody coming together to look after each other and to weather that unprecedented pandemic together. And it was, those were tough years, and we're not out of it. I mean, we're still living with COVID, but we're not in a state of emergency. We were for 2 years dealing with this, and just seeing how the community rallied, looked after each other, the inspiration and the strength and the resilience that I took from that puts a smile on my face. I didn't doubt it for a minute, but it was great to see it in action.
Beautiful. Well, make sure you head over to burlington.ca for more information. Check out haltonhillsonline.com. I'm your host, Christopher Power, with the Today Show. Our guest is the amazing mayor of Burlington, Marianne Meed Ward. Have a fantastic day and smile to inspire.